The final day, the final race in the Prototype Sprint Championship. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RCI TV. Qualifying already underway. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Callum Kerwin, Kevin Boss with us this week to do the cameras. We are in Italy. We are at Monza, albeit a slightly different configuration than you may be used to. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, but first let's welcome in Callum Kerwin. Callum, welcome in. Welcome back to the Prototypes. 7 cars looks like going to take the green flag here today. Several of those, of course, in qualifying now.
Yeah, it's a bit of an improvement on last week. I know you guys had some fun with a low number of cars and an incident on the first lap, taking one of those 3 that ran last week out. But people returning back and maybe having a bit more time in their schedules for today. As you mentioned, it's Monza, but with a twist. We have no Curva Grande. It's the Curva Grande layout, so we have no first chicane. So they go straight on at T1 and then take the flat right of Curva Grande still, and then it's braking into the traditional second chicane. But on this one, it's the first chicane, which I'm sure will confuse us both at some point. I think, yeah, we're going to see an onboard for the first of the LMP3 laps. So 10 minutes for the LMP3s, of which we've already used about 4 as they cross the line. It takes a while for these cars to get warm, so expect the times to sort of drop as they go towards the end of the session more so. So these ones might not be as representative as you think. As we see there, it goes straight on. Normally that's a very, very heavy braking zone, and a chance for some carnage. Obviously Monza, we're used to that. Flat right hand all the way, pin 6th gear, hitting the top of the limiter as you come around the corner. Heavy brake now into what is now the first chicane, missing a little bit the apex there, but clouting the inside of the exit of the right hander. And then sort of setting yourself up, trying to get the car straight, and then through the first of the 2 Lesmos, avoiding as much understeer as possible, trying to balance the car on the way round. Second Lesmo, same again, but really focusing on the exit, because then you've got the long back straight up to the Ascari chicane here, all the way obviously flat. We're taking a bit too much of the inside curve there, which unsettles the car. I think we've seen over the course of this series that these cars really do not like curves as much, but you've got to try and attack them through here. Clip the inside of the first one, hug the sort of edge of the second one, and then clipping the inside of the final left flick to try and get yourself as straight as possible, which means you can put the power down a lot quicker and get a better run onto the final straight coming up to Parabolica. I feel like this corner never ends whenever I do it in sim, but just slowly working the throttle on and taking the steering lock off as we come through, Jesse, for our first lap of qualifying.
First time lap going into the books here with Van der Voken, and that's going to be a 37.347. That'll set them for the quickest LMP3. I'm actually not even sure. I haven't seen another LMP3 out there. We do know there's 7 cars, but yes, indeed, they might be the only one. Everybody else is in the pits now. I could have sworn at least 1 or 2 of those cars were in the we're actually at the racetrack now. The way that LMU does the timing and scoring, if you are signed up for a championship and your car is at the track, and it will show up in that list regardless if you're actively in the server. So a couple of those cars we know are not here. At least one other LMP3 we are sure is in the pit lane and has not set a time. So we took a lap around, and essentially the only difference between the Monza that you probably know and love, and some people loathe, of course, is the first chicane not being there. Rettifilio just completely straight, and that's going to be really high speed. That's going to mean really high speed for both prototype classes going into Curva Grande, and we'll see what that does by the time they get to the De La Raja chicane. Voken just about drove it off the racetrack in a Ascari right there. That time scared me ever so slightly. Got the thing back under control. See, this is a quicker lap this time, and it is not a quicker lap. It was a second slower that time. What's quicker? in sector 1, but slower in the race, especially in sector 3. Now's a great time to show you the championship standings, considering today is the final. This, of course, starting with LMP2, and George Barr leads Michel Menez Rodriguez, and those are your likely top 2 drivers and where they will likely finish if they are, in fact, here today. Van Efferink in 3rd place has strong challenge from Dummel in 4th. Peter Varga a few points behind them in 5th with 68. All of those drivers could potentially walk away with high as 3rd, an overall podium in the season. Badowski in 6th place has an outside shot, a little bit off of there. Scubb in 7th, Walters in 8th, Merrill 9th, and Yelmer in 10th. Behind them, Roscom, Jardin, Daly, Scott, Gill, Giacomelli, and Reese, the 17 cars on screen. You can ignore the disqualification. It's just how the standings show up sometimes. And going on to LMP3, the newest car class in Le Mans Ultimate. Mache out in front, both on the racetrack usually, but doing great in the championship, 120 points. Louis Kierton in 2nd place on 75. Milan van der Voken, the #1 qualifier thus far, in 3rd place in the championship, has a legitimate shot. If Kierton's not here, has a legitimate shot for P2. Joe Dauber in 4th place on 35, tied with Matt Malcolm for that honor. 5 points behind them, and outside the top 5, Richard Whittle. And other drivers have signed up but have not taken part in the championship. Same thing applies. You see that disqualification, you can safely ignore that. No drivers have been disqualified from the championship.
That had me a bit confused, I'm not going to lie, the disqualification marker being there early, when I had a little brief look over sort of who was in the hunt. And yeah, I think it's just, obviously we've, as you know, Jesse, recently switched over to using SimGrid to organise our various different series that we've got running on Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays. But yeah, a bit of a switch over from the website, so I guess it's something that we'll have to get used to being on there, or see if we can work out a way around it. But yeah, good to know that we can ignore it, and these guys are, although I think all the people that are here haven't got a disqualification next to their name. I'm assuming it's because they haven't competed in so many rounds. But one thing that is certain is Louis Curtin isn't here, because his name's not showing up next to the on the scoreboard. So he's definitely not here at all. However, the other drivers, I think it means if their name's there, they've signed up, but either might not take part or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it works. I know it was explained to me by one of the other commentators who knows LMU a bit better, but it's a game I've not actually played yet. I don't know about you, Jesse, but I haven't actually managed to get onto LMU yet. But we've got the unrestricted LMP2s coming out, and I think we're expecting a few more of them, because I think we've got at least 4 out on circuit at the moment. So hopefully, Jesse, there'll be a little bit of a battle here for pole position, rather than a one sure thing of Van der Vaken sealing pole in the P3s.
Yes, indeed. LMP2, the final 10 minutes of qualifying. The track belongs to them. 4 of them already out on the racetrack right now. A couple of them actually actively racing up to Ascari right now. Peter Varga giving way on the out lap here. But quite right indeed. These are the ELMS tuned LMP2s, meaning that they are not restricted like they are for WEC, for Le Mans. These ELMS ones do not have a power restriction. They are a little bit more gnarly. They're a little bit more quick, and that's going to make Curva Grande and the De La Raja chicane very interesting indeed with this particular layout. Here's Thomas Dummel, who has had an interesting round a week ago at Algarve, but an onboard lap here will show you the absolute speed. 310 kilometers in an LMP2 car, and we're not at Le Mans, Kellen.
Yeah, I think it's probably the quickest you can get without going to Le Mans. I know, obviously, like you say, they run restricted at Le Mans because otherwise they run the risk of sort of out dragging well, it used to be LMP ones, but hypercars in the straights on the Mulsanne. But yeah, these have been quite tricky for the restricted LMP2s. Obviously, they have a tendency of snapping, and they're not the easiest cars to take, but they are certainly rocket ships in a straight line as he goes down the hill and under the bridge coming up towards Ascari. We'll see if he manages to nail it. I think it's going to be quite difficult through here, but taking a lot of the inside curve, nibbling away at the second one again, completely avoiding the third inside curve there. So maybe these cars just don't like going over the curves quite as much, which would make sense. They would be naturally stiffer to sort of cope with the increased forces that go through them. Obviously, we would expect quite a difference in lap time here between the two classes, with there being so much straight lines, and that's where the LMP2 sort of shines as we come across the line to set a 1:29.407. So we'll have to see if that's competitive or not, Jesse.
Yep, certainly. I expect it to be somewhat competitive. Will it be the ultimate time? I don't know, but that's about 8 seconds quicker than the LMP3 that we saw qualify. Those of you keeping track at home, well, they have got the quickest time thus far. Daly was P2, gets knocked down to third. Marco Badowski goes second, 0.6 off of Dommel's 29.4. Varga 2.6 off of that pace. Barr has left the pit lane. I thought there was a fifth LMP2, and there isn't. In fact, I believe Kevin Boss showed us Barr leaving the pit lane late as well. So they're on the complete opposite side of the racetrack compared to everyone else, which is where I would want to be, have all the space afforded in the world. Jordan Daly, well, he was with us a week ago at Algarve, and I was wondering if maybe they could give Dommel a run for their money. That was not necessarily the case. Daly ended up having issues with the race car and ended up parking the car. Very interesting last week, Callum, because Dommel qualified improperly. They qualified with the LMP3 cars, which you're not supposed to do. Normally, that gets you disqualified from qualifying and gets you sent to the back of the grid. Oh my goodness, and it's gone wrong. It's gone wrong in the parabolica for Jordan Daly here in qualifying. You were just mentioning, Callum, the unrestricted cars being a bit harder to tame, and I worry and I wonder if maybe that's what we saw right there, just a twitch and it's gone. There's no chance. Unlike the restricted one, which I raced at Fuji quite recently, which seemed quite stable indeed. It seemed like a fine car. These unrestricted ones are a bit more twitchy, and I think we just saw that crop up here.
Yeah, so what's he done? He's clipped the inside
it's
curve
just gone
on the way out, I think, and it's just sort of sent him round. Maybe that sort of inside curve is something that needs completely avoided. We'll have to see if we can sort of see the lines other people are taking through there, but it's just on power. And again, yeah, Badowski going around and ended up in the barrier. I think from what I remember from commentating on the first sort of few rounds of these series, especially like Sebring and things like that, the LMP2s were really, really, really sensitive over curves. So if you sort of touch one the wrong way, because they're so stiff, because they do run quite a bit more power in this setup than the sort of restricted setup that you raced, they just don't handle curves at all. So you can't really afford to touch them. As Georgie Barr goes second, so he's still pounding around. And those guys who have had spins, as we see, I think Badowski actually in the pit lane, do have time to set other laps. So they're not out of this yet. It just might be that they might not have the warmest of tyres and get everything fully up to temperature by the time that they need to. But they'll still give it a good shot and see
That
if they
still
can
looks strange to me, seeing them go straight.
Yeah, you think they're going to be braking, and then they come at the camera really quick, and it's not natural. It's a very unused.
Oh my
that's
goodness!
locking rears under braking. That is.
Marcus Demel.
Yeah, rears
Or
locked under
Thomas
braking.
Demel, not Marcus Demel. I don't know what I can't read and talk at the same time.
Yeah, it looks like he locks the rears under braking from that. The output is. We'll have to see if the ABS flashes up as he sends it in. Yeah, you can see he started to put the steering input in, and then you see the yellow light on the steering wheel on the top left up by his left thumb. That's the ABS kicking in, so it's just sent him straight around because he's locked the rears. The tiniest bit of steering input and it just unsettles the car. These are very, very, very tricky to drive as we see Jordan Daly's the next person to give it a go. And obviously they're coming at this corner with more speed than they usually would. So you've got to brake earlier, and then you've got to modulate the pedal in order to effectively bleed off enough brake by the time you put the steering input in so that it doesn't lock the rear end. Or the other solution for that is moving the brake bias a bit further forward. But then that causes you to use your front brakes more, which means your brakes wear more and you don't quite get the same amount of performance and balance. So it's a very tricky thing to manage, and it's something that's utterly complex, and you could probably spend hours diving into it. And obviously you see it on F1 on the broadcast when they change the brake balance, it comes up big on the screen, and they'll change it pretty much from most corners. They'll be adjusting different brake biases. When you get down to sort of the lower levels, sort of your F2s, F3s, you're sort of more just adjusting it in the wet compared to the dry. So these guys, I imagine, will run one brake bias for the entire circuit. I don't think these guys will be changing it as they go around necessarily. It's a bit easier in sim, obviously, because you can just have it bound to like a nice rotary dial or a button or something, can't you, though?
Yeah, and not only that, the cars are going really fast. Callum, is what's going on. Folks at home, let's play a game. One of us in the booth is an actual engineer, and the other one is an idiot on the internet. And I'll let you at home determine who is who. Jordan Daly out there again, undeterred, goes through the gantry to start their lap. They'll be looking for a little better run through the Parabolica that time, but Dommel, who had that issue, they went back around, and now it's a 29.108. The quickest time, 6/10. It was down to 4/10. The difference as Barr encroached. Oh, it's back down to 4/10 again. Barr goes across the line. George Barr resets their quickest lap and gets a little bit closer to Duhamel for the time being. Here comes Badowski. Do they have anything? They did not on that particular occasion. Daly setting his quickest sector 1. Not the quickest of all, mind you, but the quickest for himself. That's the difference between green and purple, but it's quicker still through sector 2. Must have had an absolutely horrible sector 2 on his previous quick lap, nearly 3/10 of a second quicker that time through. No, it's always good to have an engineer to actually explain what's going on out there. I can tell you what I think's going on from a driver's seat, from a perspective, but that doesn't mean that I can explain the physics of what is going on. Daly actually reset the quickest of all, sector 3, and goes back to P3, 9/10 off the pace. So that'll drop him just in the 29 second bracket.
Yeah, it's handy when your work helps out with the sim racing side of this, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, these are obviously educated guesses. It's very hard to see. Oh, he's gone round.
Same thing as Daly, just a little bit wider that time. We think that maybe Daly hit that inside curb that we saw right there, but it's also possible too that what do you think? I mean, that is the point where the car unloads, right, Callum? So maybe that's what's happening there.
It's a transition from two different types of loading. So you're loading up the front left corner, effectively going the car going into that corner, and all the stresses on there, under braking, under turning, etc. And then as you're accelerating out, you're sort of shifting the load backwards, if that makes sense, to the rear left corner, as we see a bit of a twitch. A bit of a twitch that results in a massive crash. If you get it wrong through a Ascari, that's what happens. And in these, they will kill you. That would be a huge crash in real life, and you'd see bits flying off everywhere. But thankfully for
That was good enough for pole of the one car that qualify. We do suspect there's more than one car in that class, but only one elected to take time. Unknown if Mache is actually here or not, but again, we suspect at least one of those cars is in fact there. Moving on to LMP2, Thomas Duhamel qualified in front for the second week in a row, at least when I've been here, a 28.1. Good enough for pole over George Barr, who gave a good fight there. Jordan Daly ended up P3. Marco Badowski in fourth place. Peter Varga, your fifth qualifier, got within 2 seconds there, so had a late improvement as well. Of course, this evening we expect 7 cars on the grid, and let's count at home, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh dear, one of them still in the garage. That's a LMP2 by my reckoning. Callum, still in the garage?
Yeah, I'd imagine he would be. They do get a bit of time to grid up, so I'm hoping he gets there, but maybe he's not. But starting order-wise, obviously Thomas Duhamel on pole, George Barr in second place, gives you a chance to look at the liveries as well that these guys all run. Jordan Daly in third after that massive spin, and Marco Badowski in fourth. So it's Michelle Rodriguez that's not showed up at the moment, and then we've got Peter Varga in fifth place, rounding out. Peter Varga in fifth place at the moment, and then these guys at the minute aren't here. In terms of P3s, you've got Van der Veken, who obviously was the only person to run round in qualifying. I think that's Caspri in the background that I can see, just based off the livery. So that might get a little bit interesting, because I think those guys are... Caspri's obviously out front, actually, sorry. So I don't think he can be caught anyways. And obviously these guys running down the field aren't here, but they were signed up for the race. I think that's how it works. Can never really work it out with LMU. We've discussed this before, Jesse, on the broadcast, but it seems quite a tricky game to broadcast. Kevin's got his work cut out for him in the background.
Well, not only that, he's got to put up with us knuckleheads. So, we're making it worse for Kevin Boss here today, but we do appreciate him being with us, broadcasting the final round of the not the multi-sprint. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but this is the prototype sprint championship. Of course, if you like Le Mans Ultimate and you're interested in doing some Le Mans Ultimate, we got a new championship coming up starting not this week, but next week, December 5th. Multi-sprint season number 4, I think we're on. You can have, pretty much your run of a hypercar or a GT car in that series. It's called the multi-sprint because it's multi-class and it's a sprint series. That will be running on Friday evenings if you're in Europe, Friday sometime in the afternoon if you're from the Americas somewhere. And if you're from somewhere else, Lord save you, because it's going to be the middle of the morning, 2, 3 in the morning for you for that one. But we'd love to have you. Had 31 signups to that 2 weeks before the championship starts. Still room, as far as I can tell, for you to join the multi-sprint series in Le Mans Ultimate. Hypercars, sports cars, also have a split 2 backup as well. You can visit the link in the description to go to SimGrid and sign up for that. That starts not this Friday, but next Friday, December the 5th, round number 1. We'd love to have you on LMU Fridays, as far as I can tell as well. All of those races will also be broadcasted. Of course, a big thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. Green Man Gaming, Ready Set Sim, Moser Racing, Pimax, Coach Dave Delta, and a special shout out to Motorsport UK for recommending us as an esports community. And while we're getting underway here, I want to talk about Green Man Gaming. 'Tis the season. There are deals everywhere. I'm going to do it. I do this every week. I'm going to say it again. Buy Assetto Corsa Rally. Do it right now. Go to Green Man Gaming. It's 20 quid. Buy it. Do it right now. You won't regret it. It's such a fun sim already. And there's like only a handful of content right now. Of course, it's in early access. You're going to want it. You're going to want it, and you don't want to pay full price for it. Green Man Gaming, the way to go about it. I give it the Jesse Lee seal of approval. It's fantastic. It's only going to get better. I mean, what more could you want? It's rally. You got a mix of classic and modern cars in there already. They'll add more rallies as it goes. But for right now, It is time to do battle here at Monza. It's the Prototype Sprint Series season finale. This first lap is going to be very telling. Cold tires going through the Curva Grande for the first time. We are green for the season finale. It's an easy getaway for the top two in LMP2.
I think I heard in my ears, Jesse, that Van der Weyken got a drive-through on the start. So obviously that's an automated system, like we've said before. In these races, we don't have live stewards going through.
I thought that looked a little weird.
They come through Curva Grande for the first time, as you said, cold tyres. No one's trying to move down the inside, just I think Peter Varga in the background showing the nose, but all getting through what looks like cleanly, apart from the drive-through. And as I say that, I see a P3 cutting the second part of the first chicane on this layout, but they're making their way through the Lesmos. It's stretched out a little bit as we sort of run through this first lap, but everyone's sort of finding their feet. These cars do take an extensive amount of time to warm up correctly, so hopefully these guys manage to do it. And I'm not seeing Marco Bydowski in the P2 field running up the front, so maybe an issue for him, I'm thinking, on the first lap.
Well, I am worried that there was a indicated sector yellow whenever they came through. They had just come out of the second Lesmo. They were coming down Saragello, and I do believe I saw a waved yellow, and I worry that maybe Brodowski indeed is at the back of the field, and I wonder if that might have been for him, Callum.
I'm imagining it would be because he's behind the P3s, so he must have caused something by being stationary for some period of time, because as we've seen, these things are rocket ships in a straight line, and it was only a straight line sort of running down there in the first chicane, so maybe, knowing these cars, he's probably had some kind of issue where it's gone round on him because it's cold. But we'll have to wait and see sort of if we can find out what happened to him. But sort of the closest battle at the moment is Jordan Daly trying to put a bit of pressure on George Barr for P2 and P3 in the LMP2s. I always find that difficult to say positions and then these Class 8s with because it's P2 and P3 in the P2s, but yeah.
Oh my goodness.
If you say the full whack and say LMP2s, you're all right. But that car looks straight to me, Jesse, so it doesn't look like he's biffed it into a wall somewhere.
I don't think he's whacked it on anything. Kevin Boss, our broadcaster, saying that he might have actually started from the pit lane, but I don't know about that. If he looped it, that would have been enough.
I saw him grid up. He did grid up right at the end, so
that would be enough, though. If he would have just looped it, he didn't necessarily have to hit the car on anything, but if he looped the thing, that would have still caused that yellow. And I could have sworn, unless, I'm getting old, Callum, all right? My eyes may be starting to go, but I could have sworn I saw that waved yellow, but he could have been just setting off somewhere, which would have kept him from our view and would have also caused the yellow to be displayed. But the car looks fine. To your credit, it's not been knocked or anything. The tires don't even look that bad. I love LMU because we can actually tell how bad the tires are by looking at them, and I don't see anything wrong with the front left anyway, as now Bydowski will go by the LMP3 car, one of them at least, and that will gain them actually that was the second LMP. They've already passed Reese. That was the leader, Van der Weyken, that they've just went by. And they're up into fifth, and wait a minute, if they're up into fifth, that means something's happened to Kaspersky as well.
I think that was Kaspersky just went by, because on the timing screens, Van der Weyken's 20 seconds behind.
Nope,
but
you're
I
right.
remember seeing a P3 cutting the chicane, which would make sense if there was an LMP2 that had looped on the inside of the first part of that chicane, and that's probably what cut it. So I'm imagining he's clipped the curb on the inside of the entry to the chicane. It's gone round because it's very cold, and as we've seen, these cars don't like curves. And then the P3s took the avoiding action. And I'm wondering if Van der Weyken's taken his drive-through
That's absolutely true. You've set me straight on that one, Kelm. That's right. Van der Weyken was on pole position. Kaspersky's in the lead now in the LMP3 category. We believe that Van der Weyken did, in fact, have a out-of-position drive-through penalty on the start. So easy to do in LMU as well. I did a Le Mans race. I did 2 Le Mans races, and both of them, despite knowing where I needed to be, I only just got back in line before they let us go. And it's so easy to do at every track, where it can certainly catch you off guard, and it has done for Van der Voken now, but we'll see if they're able to make up that gap. LMP3s, best I can tell, do not need to pit at any point in this race. The LMP2s will, and it's not a RCI required pit stop. It is a car limitation pit stop that we're talking about. LMP3s shouldn't have to deal with that. LMP2s, we expect all of them to come down at some point to replenish the fuel in the car at some point.
Yeah, we've seen it, I think, in some of the races earlier in the series where I've commented on. I mean, one of those was Sebring, where everybody pitted at some point because everybody crashed at some point.
I could do well in a race like that personally.
We had no time to breathe. Like there was no time, and no one knew anything about what was going on because the the leaderboard didn't update very quickly, and people were jumping up and down all over the place. People were laps down, then ended up being on the lead lap, then ended up winning. Like it was probably the most mental race I've done in RCI.
What is it with RCI and Sebring? We had an iRacing race earlier this year, which was also a prototype race that was exactly like what you just described.
Well, yeah, this one was the school layout as well. So as you take T1, you then instantly brake and turn right, and then you do the sort of last sector. It's like a double right-hander, like sort of say Tamburello is a double left, like this is a double right. So everyone just was forgetting to brake and just messing up the braking points, especially where the surface changes, obviously, because that's a piece of road that isn't really used very much in terms of racing surface. So the grip level's completely different. And people were just looping around on the entry and on the exit. That's Daly in the wall.
It's a big crash for Jordan Daly. He goes off exiting the Lesmo, and that's going to be day done for Jordan Daly. The way that he exited the race at Algarve, a similar exit here. And we'll see, is that dirty air that causes this one?
I think so, dirty air with no steam on the way through. I'm imagining you either clip the inside curb. Yep.
Yeah, he does, ever so slightly.
And it gives you a little bit of a wiggle, and then in correcting the wiggle with the way these P2s are, once you start going, the momentum swing is massive because the aero's right at the back and right at the front effectively. Once you start going, especially in sort of a medium to high speed corner like that is, it just pivots you straight away. You cannot save it. I don't think anyone would have kept that in a straight line, to be brutally honest with you. So unfortunately, that's our first retirement of the day. We'll have to, hopefully we don't have a situation where we've got two cars running around like you had last week at the end of this, but yeah, it's so easy to do. But you can see there, like they can attack the curves in certain corners. It just depends on your inputs and how gentle you are with the car. But if you sort of attack it with the mindset of trying to extract as much lap time out of them, they're very, very easy to just loop round. Yeah.
Well, Jordan Daly retires for the second week in a row. He is going to have such a harsh opinion of these cars. I think the unrestricted LMP2s, he has had an absolute bad run of luck. But what that does do is that promotes Peter Varga, who qualified last in LMP2, remember. They are on the podium right now, 1.7 seconds behind as Badowski. They may be coming with a head of steam, Mike Marco. But right now, Peter Varga in second, George Barr in second, and Thomas Dumel leads here in the early stages of the decider here at Italy. So you're talking about the LMP2 cars not liking curbs, and I think that's interesting because certainly in the early days, early access of LMU, I had that same feeling that you just never wanted to touch the curbs at all. Speaking of which, I had a battle with Kevin Boss in LMP2's pre-release of LMU where I was afraid to touch curbs and he was afraid to touch curbs, and it turned into a who dared get closer to them. But in modern context, really that's not necessarily a problem for a lot of the time, and you see some of the time they're banging off the curbs and other times they're avoiding them. I wonder if maybe it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that in the unrestricted cars where, oh, you have to be very careful. A little brake lock up there. I say a little, but it's actually somewhat significant. Varga is going to go off the racetrack and is going to get past. Badowski up to P3. But yeah, I wonder if it's just a little too edgy to really hit them sometimes unless you're steering straight. And that's why we see them hitting some of them, but completely avoiding others.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange to me because in my head, with the way this game is developed and how these cars will come out, you'd be using the physics model from the restricted version. The only real difference between the restricted and the de-restricted is the power. As far as I'm aware, they run the same suspension, and obviously it will be the same tub and bodywork, etc. So all the change is an increase in power. So it sort of seems odd that they don't like curves as much. I can understand them being a bit more difficult to drive and easier to spin out in terms of corner exit, but in terms of touching curbs, I know these guys will have to run these cars slightly stiffer on the front and sort of softer on the rear to help with the power. But I mean, that's the only like sort of setup wise thing I could think of. That I don't know exactly what these guys are running. Obviously they can get their setups from various different setup shops or make them themselves, but yeah, they just seem to not be able to quite get it to work, and it seems to be everywhere. And I think if there was sort of an easy fix in the setup, then one of these guys would have found it by now. But I don't know, maybe it just needs a bit of work from the dev side, or maybe this is just how they are to drive when they're unrestricted. But I don't remember really seeing any massive problems with curbs in any of the real life races I've seen with these cars right now.
Got a fan of Kaspersky in chat. Match A, if you watch this back on repeat, being cheered on in the chat today. A little bit of work to do from that initial start. Well, actually, maybe not so much, as they're in 5th place right now and leading the way in the LMP3 category. Looking, if I do recall from the standings, they are looking like champion-elect now as Match A Kaspersky. Oh, running off the racetrack right there. You know, we haven't really talked about that, but you start to worry about track limits at a place like this, especially in a cars that don't seem to be handling too awfully well some of the time, and try to limit those sort of off tracks, because if you figure you're going to get some anyway by just naturally the car not handling as well, you worry maybe pushing your limits a little bit too much. Easy to pick them up, but also easy to sort of avoid them too if you just slow down too. So that's also part of it. But either way, Match A Kaspersky out in front in LMP3, looking good, calm and collected. Didn't need to qualify after all, as it turns out, Callum.
Yeah, it didn't really need to waste his time. Probably just hadn't made a cup of tea, just relaxed, maybe just watched a couple of YouTube videos, and then got himself in the sim rig for the race start and blasted away, and then Van der Weyden got a drive through.
That seemed pointed, Callum. Do you don't name anyone, but you know drivers like that, don't you? That's their pre-race routine.
I mean, I know drivers in real life that are quite difficult to get into their race cars. He's ran.
Oh no!
It's Van der Weyden.
Oh, he's gonna put it in the wall. Milan van der Weyden has put it in the wall.
He's done it at the right point though, because it's right at the pit entry.
Good call. He did it in the Parabolica, and he's not come in. He hasn't had a turn, Callum, to shake the car down, so he doesn't know if it's damaged. He'll know here in a minute. What went wrong there?
Just overloaded it. Just overloaded the suspension, and the tyre couldn't deal with it. He hasn't touched anything. I don't think his inputs have been. I imagine he was being quite smooth on the throttle, but just too much speed, I think, through there. Maybe got on the throttle a bit too early in the mid corner, and just by the time you get out to the exit, that much speed with that much steering angle and that much throttle position, and it'll just overload and just snap round on you. But he didn't seem to do massive amounts wrong. But this is what we're saying with these cars being tricky to drive. He's now holding up. I'm trying to remember who that is, and I cannot for the life of me. And I've just said the name. Badowski, that's who it is. In the Interpol Europol competition car or something like that. I can't remember the exact team name that it runs in real life, but I always like their liveries. Into Europol, that's it. There's something along those lines. But yeah, no, it's just really tricky with these cars because they just do like to snap if you take a bit too much sort of apex or exit speed, and yeah, it didn't really do an awful lot wrong there, Jesse. There.
No, sometimes it'll just bite you. It's happened to me a few times where it feels fine. It feels fine. You say I call it unloading. I'm not an engineer, as you can tell. But you just, all the feel goes away. The steering gets incredibly light, and you wonder what in the heck happened right there. But he didn't come in, which tells me that Millen doesn't think the car's damaged, and it doesn't appear as if it. I mean, he smacked it pretty good on the rear, but it could have been worse. If it was a straight frontal or rear impact, it would have been way worse in this damage model. But hitting it on the side, you worry about toe link suspension, the rear tracking, but you would know that almost instantaneously getting into the next corner. If your braking's a bit wonky, you'd feel that, and you wouldn't drive like that. The car wouldn't even drive like that. The rear would be trying to pass the front and all that. So I know a lot of people probably worry about aero damage, but on an LMP3 car, it's not really the biggest. It wouldn't really be my biggest concern. Mine is if he hit that what would eventually be the left rear with the way he went into it. Or maybe it was the right rear, yeah, because the camera was backwards. But you get the point. Ooh, nervous car right there. We're seeing all the cars get nervous through that part of the corner. Even our leader, Thomas DeMille.
Yeah, the steering goes light, Jesse, because the front tyres are sensitive. So the tyres.
Well, you're the engineer, Callum. You fix it. Listen. I'm loose mid corner. All right, fix it.
We like to call that one a picnic in engineering, Jesse, which is an acronym that stands for problem in cockpit, not in car.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing. Somebody's got to drive it. Somebody's got to work on it. And unless you want to be up all night putting the wing back on, tighten me up, man.
I've never heard the phrase "tighten me up" in terms of a racing sense. That's not the feedback I normally get.
I'm from America, bro. Hey, I'm from America, man.
I don't work in tight and loose, Jesse. I work in under and oversteer.
How much wedge do you think I should run?
None. You should buy a car that has proper suspension.
I'll have you know.
It's a massive dark art, that NASCAR setups. It's like single seaters and P2s and GTs and whatever are quite difficult, but like oval setups are insane. I think one of the first races I did on RCI ever was, did we run a Project Cars 2 Indy 500? I'm talking like years ago.
We ran AMS2. I don't know if we ran
AMS2. I can't remember, but I ran an Indy 500 and just could not get the setup right at all because they are so difficult to set up cars.
I will have you know that NASCARs do have independent suspension now. Your information about NASCAR is probably a little out of date, but yeah, they're independent. They've got. Mate, do you realize that they didn't have fuel injection until about 10 years ago?
Yes, it's crazy.
That's absolutely insane.
Is that they only had centre lock wheel nuts. Did they see it last year?
In the last few years.
I don't know when NASCAR's season was, but they actually used the previous year's F1 kit. The old F1 kit is what the NASCAR teams use in terms of pit guns.
Yep. Some people will be surprised to hear that NASCAR is actually an FIA sanctioned series.
Yeah, but they will take your wrists off if you don't know what you're doing with them. Those pit guns are unbelievably powerful. We ran a 2013 LMP2 at Silverstone, and to do the torque for the wheels was 1,000 euros.
There have been a couple of cars in NASCAR that have attempted to leave their pit stall with the tire changer attached to the wheel nut. It's very scary. A couple of they've had hand injuries. I'll be, we're on YouTube. We've got to, play to the monetization, but they've had hand injuries mid race, and pit crews they're tough folk. They just kind of get on with it and all that. But no, it's the biggest issue with NASCAR right now, Callum, you may be interested to know, is the locking pin on the center locking thing, the pin that locks it behind
Yep.
the on the hub.
Yep.
Sometimes those haven't been latching or firing off whenever the nut goes past it, and there's been loose wheels a lot. So now they're trying to figure out how they can index it better.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, like I said, we had that. We had a 2013 Pescarola LMP2. We ran the Silverstone Classic in a couple of years back. I was a #1 mechanic on, and the Milwaukee guns that you get to do up stuff. The big one with the handle on the top. That's what you had to use, and to do it up, you had to do it up in the lowest setting. Otherwise, you'd shred the nut so much would effectively weld itself onto the onto the hub. But then to undo it once you'd done it up with the torque wrench, if you didn't do it on the highest setting, you wouldn't be able to get it off at all. So you had to be very, very careful on what you were doing, on which setting you had the gun on.
I am quite curious, if you essentially strip the nut to the point where the gun can no longer take it off, how do you then separate it? Do you just heat it up and smack it until it comes off, or how do you do it?
Because what it does is there's basically, instead of having six sides like you would on a hex socket, they have little splines, little teeth that go on the socket that go into little indents in the wheel nut, and those teeth are magnetic. That's what holds the nut on the gun when you take the wheel off, so you can use the same nut over and over. Unlike NASCAR, the old system, when they had the I think cooler pit stops, the little Guido, it's time went.
He's gonna spin it.
George Barr's around. He'll keep out of the wall though, and managed to get himself going again. Sorry, there's some racing going on here, Jesse. I think at some point.
I think that's a crash, Callum.
Oh, here he comes. This is going to be an on-track battle now between Badowski and George Barr. Badowski getting held up there, coming through the first Lesmo, but just carrying way more speed. Those tyres will take a little bit of a while to feel normal for George Barr, as he's locked them up by holding the brakes. So Badowski was always going to get through there, but yeah, George Barr now has a bit of a tyre to chase down, so might push them both along a little bit and see if they can catch up to first place.
Well, it's been fortuitous, since whatever happened to Marco Badowski on the start, we're not entirely sure. We assume a spin of some variety, otherwise they wouldn't have been dead last in the race. But it's all come back to Badowski now, as they've driven all the way back up to P2 in their class. George Barr spinning around, helped out, of course, but still, don't take anything away from Badowski. He is absolutely flying.
Yeah, he's always one of those. George Barr comes in, so I think that might be to do his pit stop and change tyres. I'm imagining those tyres have got too big of a flat spot on, and you can do it while you fuel in Le Mans. So I'm assuming that that's why he's come in. I mean, he'd be silly not to fuel up while he goes. As Kevin is trying to find what happened to Marco Badowski, we'll see if my prediction for that seems a bit strange. Might be the replay tool bugging out.
What's going on? Now, hold on a minute. Let's try to make sense of this. Was he
out of position?
Was he on the grid? Was he on the grid, came back to the pit lane and just got back onto the grid, or did he not set off in time and get a penalty of some type?
No, because he was driving. I swear I saw that car coming.
If you're not in position quick enough, I don't know what happens. I thought it would reset you to a penalty, because that's what most sims would do.
Yeah, so he's not there now. Yeah, so he disappears. So I'm assuming he's out of position. Maybe he needs to be further back there.
I think
not
Callum. What? So okay, so he was in position there before he disappeared. This is excellent camera work by Kevin Boss, by the way. He was in position right there. Something else happened that reset him back that far. I would love to know exactly what that was. Now was that on purpose? Did he realize, oh, I don't have fuel in the car, I'm still on my quality setup, I'm on old tires, which of course it doesn't automatically give you a new set, you have to do that yourself in LMU. Did he, right before the start of the race, realize this setup is incorrect, reset, change it, and then it put him all the way back in his grid spot box?
I don't know how.
Because if it's not that, what you'd think, right? But because the race hadn't gone green, did it reset him? To, if it's not that, what the hell did we just see?
We're gonna have to get the tinfoil hats back out again, Jason.
We're gonna have to have a conversation with Batowski after this just to figure out what we witnessed.
I'm not sure. Like I said, I've not driven this game yet, so I'm not entirely sure about the starting procedure and how it works exactly. But yeah, that's really strange. Going back to the wheel nut tour, the exciting thing you get when there's only about 5 cars driving around is we see Dumal just 30 seconds out in front and he's chilling. He doesn't need to push anymore. But yeah, wheel nut talk. So I don't know if you remember Valtteri Bottas at the Monaco Grand Prix when he was racing for Mercedes. They stripped a wheel nut. So the teeth that are on the gun are made of a metal that is effectively stronger than the aluminium or magnesium nuts, as we see a bit of a coming into the first chicane on this layout, but manages to escape unharmed. That's Peter Varga. But yeah, so the teeth on the gun are stronger than the teeth of the nut. So if anything's going to break, it breaks the nut. And they had to Dremel the nut very, very finely in order to save the part. So they took the entire front right corner off the car, took it back to the factory and had to Dremel the nut so it broke apart. And yeah, basically that's how they got the wheel off. So if you strip the threads on a nut and the wheel is on the car, you cannot get it off without cutting it.
So what you're saying is we should be making the space shuttle out of it.
The space shuttle is made out of it. It's magnesium.
Isn't magnesium really flammable?
In certain situations, yes. Titanium's more.
Maybe.
That's why you have the sparks under the F1 cars, because they're the blocks on the skids are made of titanium.
Oh. Very interesting indeed. Do you know what's interesting about NASCARs? They actually have quite a bit in common with prototypes. Now they have diffusers and all that stuff. They're not as quite as simple tech as they used to be. They're somewhat complex in the modern era with their systems.
I have seen video evidence of someone putting their hand out of their window on a qualifying lap in order to make them go quicker.
Well, I saw that a couple times in WEC too, but only they weren't doing that. They were.
It was the Corvettes.
Well, I'm not naming names, but they were trying to let BMW know who was number one, and it wasn't. No. They were just saying, "Look, I'm in position one now." That's all they were doing. Anything else is just slander and hearsay for Corvette racing. What is it with Corvette? What is it with Corvette drivers having to register their running order with other cars mid-race?
I don't know, but it's badass that they can take their hand off the wheel and do that.
How?
It's very hard to maneuver inside a GT.
I was going to say, most cars, that's impossible because there's a headrest in the way.
Well, there's a window now, from memory, in most GT3s. In the Bentley we had at uni, there was.
And you've got to have, because the whole window doesn't come down. It's just a little porthole,
so
essentially.
He's put his hand past the window net and through the cat flap, effectively.
And his arm, by the way, we're talking about WEC stuff, so spoilers. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's been all over the internet. Go look it up.
Search it on TikTok. Come back. You'll find it.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, his hand wasn't like, it wasn't just his hand. He could have gotten a drive-through takeaway. His hand was so far out that window. Like, it was his whole arm. And I was thinking when I saw that at Daytona, and we saw that at Bahrain, and I think to myself, that must be really hard because normally there's a headrest and like your shoulder's locked in, so it's not like your shoulder can really move. So the way that he's contorting to get his whole hand out the window, an impressive length as well.
He's put some effort there to show that he's in first.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at.
I do rate the effort.
Imagine being that pissed off that you go to that length. Badowski now lapping his LMP2 brethren, putting Peter Varga down a lap compared to him, which means DeMel has also gone through. Peter Varga, when we've been chatting, has done their stop. They came in near the halfway point, and usually they will come in either at the midway point or as late as possible, the last 15 minutes or so, whenever they're completely out. Keep in mind, LMP3s don't necessarily have to pit. They should be good to go. Kaspersky continues to lead. Maciej Kaspersky leading the race in LMP3 and the championship. Van de Voken, the other LMP3 that we have in P2. That car did qualify on pole, but has run into a couple spots of bother. They did get into the wall off the Parabolica turn, but they have not come in to pit, and that tells me that the car's pretty all right. In fact, they've only lost a second and a half to Kaspersky this entire time. So yeah, no real issue with that car. Of course, I worry about alignment when I see a knock like that in LMU, but doesn't seem to have bothered them at all. The only car bothered today, Jordan Daly, who also found the wall off of the Parabolica. That car has retired, the only DNF of the day, leaving us 6 cars circulating on the racetrack. We're going to take a look here. We're the in-car cam for Milan Van de Voken, and yeah, that's completely straight, but damage on the rear, Callum, correct me, I'm not an engineer, correct me, I'm a stupid driver. That doesn't really show up really in a straight line, but it will in the braking zone if it's on the rear, right?
It will, depending on which way you bent the wheel out, it will show up in a straight line because you'll be on power, so the car will crab. So that's why you see sort of cars sort of driving along on a straight line but needing to turn right hand down and crabbing. So the whole car will effectively be at an angle then, because if the wheel's bent in or bent out too far. Yeah, it won't help braking. Most of the braking is done with the front end, however, so you're loading the suspension on the front as well. So basically braking, your front end's more important. Acceleration will be where it really hurts, and obviously if it's massively towing in or towing out, the wheel scrubs. The ideal way for a car to run in a straight line is with no tow in or out at all, because any tow in or out is effectively scrubbing the tyre, which is causing friction, which loses you speed because it causes mechanical drag. So it would cause you to be maybe down a bit of a straight line and, you know, maybe have a bit of a lairier car on corner exit. Yeah, it's complicated. We normally run on a single seater, you run a mil of tow out on each corner at the front and a mil of tow in on the rear, and that usually works quite well for sort of those mid-engine, lightweight single seater slicks and wings cars, as we call them. But yeah.
I love having an engineer to correct all my driver bad math. I do enjoy that quite a bit indeed. Well, just about halfway done here. The championship nearing its conclusion in 26 minutes time. The first prototype sprint championship here on RCI TV. As far as I can tell, the first to do a full season with the ELMS spec cars, and I think we've learned a lot. I don't think any of us at the start of the prototype sprint championship, I don't think any of us thought that the LMP2 would be as sketchy as it was. I think we've learned a lot about the cars in general in this new spec, and I think the drivers too have learned a ton about the different machinery. It's always good to see new cars come into a sim, and you always wonder where the LMP3 was going to fit in, and I think this was a good first run for those cars as far as getting around on track and getting some representation. And of course, they were the less popular choice versus the LMP2 car, but I don't know about you, Callum, but if I had to be out there on the grid, I would have picked the LMP3 car, not because it's new, but just because it's the unknown. I like a challenge, and nothing's more challenging than a new car where you have absolutely zero notebook.
It's a nice level playing field, isn't it, as well? It's a nightmare from sort of the day job point of view, because when you get a new car, you have no idea what you're doing. Well, you have some idea what you're doing with it, but you don't have years of data to back yourself up with. And
Sure.
I don't really think LMP3s have been massively represented in sims at all, really. I can't really remember of any other sims having them. I don't think iRacing does. So, yeah, the style... Oh, they do. I'm being told by Kevin Boss in my ear. But the style of driving won't be... They're not as popular, so the style of driving won't be as similar to these guys. It's a weird mix of sort of GT slash single-seater slash prototype style that you have to sort of use with these cars. But yeah, I think that those who have put the time in and showed up to every round and have mastered it, like Casper here, have really shown that consistency is key. And he's managing to come away with, I think, a points gap that was unassailable before this race even started. So he's just effectively driving this one for fun, Jesse, and seeing if he can make it 4 out of 5, which is very impressive for a series where we've had cars with very difficult to drive and very high DNF rates. To do 4 out of 5 is quite impressive.
Oh, you said it. He's hitting the dirt right there, but I think that goes to talk about the drivability of the car. But no, you absolutely said it. Maciej Kaspersky just on something of a victory lap here for this hour. And even driving off the racetrack, banging curbs in Ascari, that car does not look unsettled in the slightest. And I know these cars sometimes can be something north of difficult to keep the handle on. And I went on last week about them, about how that's kind of the point. We run Porsche Cup on ACC on Mondays. And for a lot of people, for customer racing, that's sort of a gateway race series is Porsche Cup in real life. LMP3 is kind of the same thing in endurance racing and prototype racing. And they both have something in common, that they're not the most hospitable cars to drive, but that is the point. The point is to have something that teaches you these lessons that you're going to need the further you go up the rungs in whether that be sports cars, prototypes, whatever it is. And here's the engineer Callum to tell me how I'm wrong.
No, you're not at all. I've got
oh my God, I got one right.
I've got a friend who raced in GB3 in the old spec cars, who I mechanicked for, and he now drives in the Michelin Le Mans Cup in an LMP3 for, I think it's a French team because he's French, Arthur Rogon, but I think it's CD Sport or something like that. I can't quite remember the team name. But yeah, he drove in GB3.
Oh.
That's a car going slowly.
That's on the limiter is what he is.
He's pitting. But he was on the limiter earlier than the pit entry, so this looks intentional.
Well, there's one way to not get a speeding penalty at pit lane, and that is to be on the limiter a few kilometers away. In that case, that was close to a mile. That was almost half a kilometer away from
Van der Weyden
pit.
got a drive-through penalty on the start. Kasper has given himself a drive-through penalty for the lols, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's not pitted that car. That is a drive-through penalty. He's still on the limiter. He's waiting for Milan van der Voken.
Thanks, mate. Giving us something else to talk about up here. There you go, Kevin. Just watch these two cars for the next 21 minutes and 23 seconds, and then we'll go from there, really. But I mean, that says something when you are that bored that you can give yourself a drive-through. Still come out 10 seconds in front, and now I'm assuming he's come out behind Van der Weyden. Oh, that's Van der Weyden. Yeah, no, so Van der Weyden is still chasing him down, so I'm assuming he'll lift off and see if Van der Weyden catches him up. But you get a penalty for that in real life, Jesse, being on the pit limit that early.
Oh yeah, of course, because you're track hazard at that point.
He wasn't within the pit entry, the pit entry lines. He was still on the racing surface technically, and so you get a definite slap on the wrist. They might deem it penalisable for dangerous.
Would that constitute team principal to the office? Do you think something happen.
Yes,
Really.
I've had less that I've had to go up to an office about. So, yeah, I've been up to the Silverstone one. That car has steering damage.
Yeah,
Like,
it's definitely listing to the left a little bit, and that is different from the last time we went on board. Well spotted and well captured by the camera, though. We saw that this car earlier, even after the knock. It was not. It did not have damage, but it's hit something. Engineer, correct me. Presumably on the left front, that has knocked the toe of that thing out, or the tie rod, or whatever you call it in normal speak. That isn't America.
Track rod. Yeah, potentially left front, potentially left rear. It's probably left side of the car, seeing as the way that is steering, it would be the left side's towing in. So he's hit something. Whether it's
Now
a
the
curb
question
too hard
is,
or a wall.
oh, can a curb? Kevin
Yeah,
Boss, you're gonna have to
honestly.
talk to me in my ear. Is that possible in LMU to get suspension damage from banging one of the sausages? Yeah, neither have I. Kevin Boss and me agree that we've not seen it, but we don't think it's we can't say it isn't possible.
I've seen it in real life where curbs have bent
Oh,
front ends.
sure.
I don't know if it's simulated or not, the impact, but it depends on how their model works massively, I guess.
In R Factor 2, which is what this LMU is based off of, you could very easily damage the aero of the car by hitting curbs too hard.
Oh, it's gone round.
Falcon's gone off. He's smacked the curb a little bit too hard, and Ascari, he's gone around, and he's exited the track. Thankfully, he's going to just about narrowly avoid the tire pack, and he'll get going. But
someone get a message to Kaspreet. He's pulled into the pits. I was going to say someone get a message to Kaspreet to do another drive-through penalty on himself, but I don't think there's a point now, as he's the only one turning laps around now. So yeah, shame to see Van der Beek end it that way, especially after he got an outstanding pole. Oh, he's not in the pits. Oh, it's just okay. Sorry, Kevin. Yep, being corrected by Kevin Boss in my ears. That's just the way the replay tool works. It just shows everyone in the pits, which is a bit strange. But LMU is a bit strange when it comes to replays. That happened before he hit the curb. I'm thinking that's probably a result of steering damage, Jesse, because that happened before he even went near the curb. Yeah. Yeah, well, it broke loose.
There you go.
But yeah, I can't remember what we were talking about before.
Well, we were talking about his suspension and that sort of thing. And my question to you as an engineer is, at what point is it worth it to come down to the pit lane? And at what point do you tell your driver just to deal with it, just to grin and bear it?
For that kind of, for track rod damage, there's nothing you can do about it, really. At all.
I mean, sure, you've got a rubber mallet or a magic hammer or something, right? Take the wheel off, bash it back in place, right? That's how it works.
In an endurance race, yeah, you could probably. It depends. I haven't worked in endurance racing as much as I have in sprint racing. So obviously in sprint racing, if you pit, you're pretty much done. And in single seaters, if you bend a track rod, the wheel will be at a massive angle typically, compared to endurance cars that are built to take a hit. So they're a lot beefier, these cars, than single seaters are. Like I said, that's probably why I've seen track rods bend on curbs if you hit them too hard. The chicane on the Donington GP layout has these metal blocks on the extreme inside. Sometimes they place tyres over and sometimes they don't. And I remember when I was at university, running an F3 car, and we clouted one in testing and bananaed a track rod end. We had a little weak point at the end of them, and it straight bananaed it. So yeah, I've seen curbs bend track rod ends. I've seen them bend camber arms on TCR cars. You don't realise how big the curbs, the drop in a curb is until you move the track. Even just the Italian flag curbs, effectively on the sides of the circuit there, they're quite big in terms of the ridges in them and the drop between each curb. It's like a noticeable difference when you walk around. The same way you don't really notice elevation on camera.
Do you have to forgive me, I don't know the European term. You don't call them steps, like they're step curbs is how I would refer to them. You don't call them that.
They don't have a specific name, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, they're stepped, yes, but then they also have serrations on the curb, if that makes sense as well, going all the way along
Sure.
it. So there might be like 20
Okay.
serrations on each individual coloured piece, which is what gives you the sort of almost like burring sound as they drive over them. It's the tyre running over that. It's like that musical road thing you have in the States somewhere. I don't know where it is in the States. I know it exists. I saw it on Top Gear. So
we also have that sort of thing on the edge of highways and everything as a sort of a
yes,
warning that
true.
you're exiting the road and all that. And I may drive over that purposely sometimes when I'm feeling a bit silly, I will admit. But I mean, I would never do that. I'm a completely responsible adult, but no, yeah, it is a huge step. I got a question about that, about damaging the suspension on the curbs. Certainly, as an engineer, you tell the driver certain things that they need to know about the car and the track conditions. You know what they might be able to expect or what you expect from them. Do you blame the driver if they bang a curb too hard and all of a sudden your track rods are bent up and now you have to go back to work? Do you blame the driver for that, or is that just like one of those things where you don't know until you do it?
If you've told him not to touch the curb while you're doing the track walk, it's the driver's fault. If you haven't told him not to touch the curb, it's racing. Is my
Fair
opinion.
enough.
I mean, it does
No, that's
not happen
completely fair.
a lot, and you wouldn't do it on a serrated curb. It would be a sausage curb or those anti-cut blocks that they put on chicanes. You wouldn't necessarily do it anywhere else.
I have a problem with that sort of technology, and I remember when I was somewhat younger, that sort of showed up at Le Mans for the first time, and I always thought to myself, now what is the point of the anti-cut curb if you're going to give a penalty anyway? If the driver flies through there, all that actually does is make it more dangerous. And here at Monza, we have that, the anti-cut curbs, the huge sausages. I am of the opinion, you may disagree. Welcome to the RCI podcast, by the way. I am of the opinion that that's more dangerous than letting the driver fly through there and have control of the car. Because in a flat bottom car, which most race cars are today, even GT cars are flat bottom pretty much. That is more dangerous being high centered on that, it's skidding over it, than having all four tires on the ground and being able to navigate it. Now it's time for Callum to tell me I'm wrong.
They are more dangerous. That's why they were removed from the exit of Parabolica, because a car hit the anti-cut curb on the exit by running out wide and flipped coming out onto the main straight in Monza. It's happened at a few places as well, especially with single seaters.
That's even worse, isn't it? Really?
They flip. There's a clip on the internet somewhere of an F3, I think it is, or an F4 going upside down and doing a complete backflip pretty much on when they have those anti-cut curves. And I know F1 have had trouble with them as well, damaging the undersides of their cars. So a lot of circuits have started to remove sausage curbs and sort of favour AstroTurf or less grippy surfaces on the outside. But you've got to keep it on the black stuff. Really, is if you're going out that wide, you're making a mistake. So you get punished for making a mistake, whether that's through a time penalty or through your car getting a bit bent up. But yeah, I mean, you've been go-karting, right, Jesse?
Yeah, of course.
You know that big thing at the start and of the briefing that they say to you, and those big triangles that are all around the track that say motorsport is dangerous?
Yeah, there's also a form as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why those forms are there.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of the underside of open wheel cars.
Yes.
How big is your plank?
We don't run a plank on the classic F3. However, because we have to run at 40 millimeters of ride height, it's a global MS Motorsport UK run a regulation. So you have to have like special permission to run lower than 40 millimeters of clearance. So on the classic one, we've actually taken the plank off so we can run the car lower, even by a few mil. But it's the same sort of plank you use in... Yes, because the plank is only a legality skid. It's not a part of the car. So it is
More
allowed.
you know.
Well, yeah, well, we haven't got told off for it yet. As long as a car is above the ride height, the plank is only there to measure. But it's the same thing in F1 in terms of thickness. Yeah, obviously, I think McLaren, looking at the numbers that they got disqualified by and doing some maths on it, Piastri, at his worst point on his car, it was the thickness of 2 to 3 sheets of paper.
Yeah,
That's
this
how
is
far
what I
this
was
car
getting
lean.
at.
I
I'm
knew
glad you brought
were.
that up because I was getting at this. Go on.
So yeah, so it was 0.26 of a millimeter too thin, which for people at home to visualise, if you get 3 pieces of paper and hold them very, very tightly together, that is more thick than his skid was illegal. So if it was, you know, paste that onto the bottom of the skid at the point, and that would have been legal, a legal car, effectively. So it's a tiny, tiny margin. From what it looks like, they have typically these skids have 2 measuring holes at the front and 1 at the back. I don't know if it's the same in F1. I haven't seen an F1 skid before, but certainly I think F2, F3, and GB3 and F4 all use the same skid. So yeah, they have 2 holes at the front and 1 at the back. But yeah, so it's a tiny, tiny amount. It looks like it was uneven on. It was even wear, so you'd imagine they just ran the whole platform too low. That was a big old snap, wasn't it, from Van der Weyden
Sure
in
was.
weird place. On the exit as he straightened it up already. Strange. Again, probably those steering damage, isn't it? So, but yeah, no, it's a tiny amount, but illegal's illegal. You know, everyone else was above that amount. If you're a piece of paper too thick, then you're fine. If you're a piece of paper too thin, then you're gone. And it was the right thing to do. It's very much a black and white part of motorsport. If you run too low and you're illegal, then you get disqualified. It would be the same for any other car. It just looks like they made the mistake of running a few millimeters too low on the ride height.
Ash Bibby's joined us in chat to say plankless racing. May, I don't think that means what you think it means. Maciej Kapierski, however, continues to go around, even with a self-imposed drive-through penalty. They are unabated here. Van der Weyden continues to, I'm going to go ahead and say, wrestle his LMP3 car around the racetrack, as I think it'll be a job well done if they're able to make it the final 7.5 minutes home. Demel qualified up in front for the second week in a row and has played keep away. Badowski drove all the way from the back, and I don't mean from the back of his class, I mean from the back of the entire field, and potentially even about 20% of a lap down, all the way back to P2. George Barr in third place. Varga, the 4LMP2 car, still circulating. Jordan Daly was with us, had a crash in the Lesmo and then the Parabolica, and DNF'd from the race. You've been caught up on what's been going on. We've been talking about F1 planks and the thickness or the lack thereof on the McLaren. Ruined the championship for me, to be honest. But we'll see. A couple more rounds left to go. Here is Peter Varga, who continues to circulate as well. Final 6.5 minutes left of the race in the championship. Just enough time to remind you to go to Green Man Gaming and buy a Assetto Corsa Rally for 20 quid, there or thereabout. Convert into your local currency, may change it slightly, but huge discount. Use our link in the description, of course. Ready, Set, Sim. Go try out their sim rig builder. You can build the sim rig that you want. It's like PC part picker, except way cooler for your sim rig. Go to readysetsim.com. And also Monza Racing, direct drive hardware, that quality hardware that doesn't break the bank. Monza Racing, they've got all sorts of Newton meters and price points for you there. I've never heard anyone say anything negative about Monza Racing, so check out their line of direct drive sim racing products over on their website. That link also in the description. Of course, if you're into VR, and we know some folks in sim racing really are, hey, you can do VR in LMU, you can do VR in ACC, both series that we cover here on RCI TV. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. You can go to Pimax and check out their range of headsets and even get a RCI specific discount when you use our link in the description. Of course, if you're going to be racing with all that new fancy kit, you're going to need setup and know-how, and you already know where to go. Coach Dave Delta gets you a Coach Dave Academy setup and avoid incidents on the racetrack and be competitive today. Of course, another special shout out to Motorsport UK for recommending us as an esports community. Did Van der Voken have another little incident while I was going through all that?
Not that we saw. However, he's dropped another 16 seconds, so I'm assuming he did.
Kevin Boss is on the case. He smells trouble, and he's right. Another spin. Not identical, but quite close indeed to the previous one. Van der Voken's, again, going to be happy just to get to the checkered flag here this evening, and that's got connection problem written all over it. But it's fine. That didn't happen. You didn't see it. It didn't happen. The men in black do not exist.
Jesse,
Look right here for me, please.
We're going to need another tinfoil hat on top of our already tinfoil hats.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear from Marco on what happened.
Kevin's just said penalty Casper.
Is it a track limit?
Oh, track limits.
Oh, he's got to come down.
Yeah.
Well, luckily he had a 35-second lead.
I think he'll be okay. Yeah, he ran wide on the exit of Parabolica. That's where they had those sausage rolls. So if you ran that wide, you'd have smacked into him basically. Which is good because it forces the drivers not to go there at all. But it's bad because if you make a mistake in the midpoint of the corner, like we've seen a lot of people do on the exit, sort of the second half of the corner, you get spat into a sausage curb and then your race is over because you can't recover it or you go into a wall. So it's pretty tough. But yeah, Podolski coming up to overtake Kasperik. So Van der Voken, after all that, is only going to end up about 6 to 7 seconds off the lead. And Jesse's just muted, so I'm assuming he's otherwise engaged. But you're seeing currently Marco Podolski.
I'm married, actually.
God, I don't get to do streams with Jesse very much anymore. I think my first few that I ever did were with Jesse, and I don't think I've ever streamed with him since. Oh,
I don't know why that tickled Kevin Boss, man. That my day is complete. I'm having a great day. Kevin Boss had to walk away on that one. That was too good. Quality dad jokes. That's what you get here at RCI. No, I do apologize, but
Listen, are you a dad or are you just practicing?
Well, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
No, you either are or aren't a dad.
Well, yeah, but you never stop practicing.
Oh dear. I'd turn off now, guys, if you're watching. Just I wouldn't bother.
What do you mean? No, don't do that. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. We got a race to call here. We got a couple of champions to crown in the inaugural prototype sprint series.
It took you 58.5 minutes to make a dad joke, so that's quite impressive.
Well, I was talking about plank length earlier, so I got pretty close.
Do you reckon Formula 1 can have planks?
I have no idea.
I mean, they do, but I'm making the joke.
I have no idea. All I do know is that Ash Bibby wants me to say Jabberwocky, and I'm not sure why. Is that a thing he's doing now? Is that Ash? Ash used to ask us to say ooh a lot, but now he's asking us to say random words.
I know the word Jabberwocky, but I don't know where I know it from. What's that from?
Well, knowing Ash Bibby, it's something vaguely impolite.
In a foreign language.
Yeah.
You've just told some Korean guy's mother something rude about him. I don't know.
All I know is Thomas Duhamel is cruising to victory, the same as Kaspersky here today. Thomas DeMel's been on fire the last couple of weeks, and this week I will say it's been a lot cleaner day for them here. Of course, Algarve is, I think, a less hospitable racetrack in general, but still absolute cruise control here. No real issues. Perhaps the only car in the entire race that we've seen just go about their business cleanly without any sort of hiccup, whether that be their own devices or not.
I mean, it shows it can be done, doesn't it? So,
Sure.
you know, these are very difficult cars to drive, and whether it's through technique or through setup or a bit of both, or just purely that he might have a bit more time in these cars than some of the other guys, you know, it shows it can be done. It's very difficult. You know, these guys who are making mistakes are some of the quicker people within RCI. You know, Badowski and Peter Varga especially, and George Barr. You know, are massively quick guys. I mean, I don't know about you, Jesse, but I would be nowhere near them. So to see them making mistakes sort of reminds us that they're human. But
Sure.
Thomas Dumal, a bit of an inhumane performance. No mistakes, Jesse.
Yeah, quite clean indeed. And here it is, the end of the championship, and it's another win for Thomas DeMel. He'll come home the winner in LMP2. Marco Badowski will follow up in P2. You're right, that is difficult to say that out loud without confusing LMP2, P2 in position 2. But Marco Badowski from dead last on the grid, a weird circumstance for sure, but it hasn't mattered. Badowski's going to come across the line and come home P2, and a well-deserved one at that. George Barr will be behind him in a deserved P3, a quiet P3 for George Barr here today. Peter Varga is going to end up in 4th place. In fact, they've already crossed the line, being a lap down. So George Barr will be our last finisher in LMP2. I'm being told what Ash is doing. He's adding that to his soundboard. I have no idea why. George Barr across the line in P3. Maciej Kaspersky wins the race and the championship for sure in LMP3. And maybe driver of the day, Spirit of the Race Award winner, Milan van der Velken. Milan, I think celebrating the only way you celebrate a tough race like that.
Yeah, deciding to part ways with the P3 car by completely destroying it. But yeah, I think that will be Duhamel into 2nd in the championship overall as well. As you see the final standings on the screen there. Obviously, Jordan Daly are only DNF from the race,
which is, I think, the lowest retirement rate we've had all season is just the one DNF.
I believe so. It's definitely as of the rounds I've commentated. However, it's also the lowest attendance rate as well. So I don't know quite how it works in terms of percentages, but yeah, it's the lowest number.
Could always be worse, Callum.
You never know.
Well, we are joined by some of the racers today. We're going to start off with something that I affectionately like to refer to as the Varga Report. Peter, take it away.
Lovely to hear your soothing voice, Jesse. It's the report for this race. Qualified, alright. Started good. Was going shit. Put music on louder in the speakers. Started going well. Finished.
You love to hear it. Hey, you know, I think just getting to the end of these things sometimes is sort of half the battle. Could you kind of explain to us a little bit about what it's like to drive an unrestricted LMP2 car? What makes it trickier than the normal WEC Le Mans version?
Have you ever tried to ride the rhinoceros? That is not in the line of cocaine.
Can't say I have.
That's basically the this car. It tries to kill you, but it's satisfying when you manage to do a good job with it. But overall, the car it is fine. It has good acceleration. You know, gets fast, really fast, considering it's unrestricted. But it has the same thing as the standard LMP2, that it's very bad on mechanical grip, at least from my feeling. compared to like the GTs or even the hypercars, it has very low mechanical grip. So in the corners, in like first gear, or when you are low on the rest in second gear, it's just sliding sideways like a drift car.
Oh, goodness me. Well, thank you for being a part of the championship and finishing strong. Anybody you want to shout out?
To Marco, keeping the voice chat alive during the race.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Well, there you go. That's Peter Varga. And for Peter Varga, to the voice you just heard, Marco Badowski. Marco, tell us about your race. Callum and I have some questions when you're done, though.
Yeah, I figured that you have some questions like, I don't know, it was a bit awkward in the qualifying. I thought like I could have had at least another half a second, but I really didn't put the lap together. So I thought to myself, okay, P4, still decent starting position. I go to the grid. Like I'm stuck right behind I think it was George who was in P2, and for some reason I get tunnel snap back to the back straight. Like where my car spawns when I go to drive on the starting grid.
Because that confused us. We didn't know whether you'd like gone back and changed setup, or whether you've got like an out of position warning or something like that. Like we don't know how that works exactly, because none of us have experienced it at that time yet. But all we saw was you were there, and then you weren't, and then we didn't see it straight away on the broadcast. So we thought you might have had an incident or something, and then we just see you disappear and get teleported back. So, but there was no like out of position warning or anything like that that came up on your screen. It was just bang straight back to where you started from.
Yep, no, nothing really. Like I was just like maybe dragging the brakes a little bit to warm the tires, but I didn't get any warning for being out of line or like being too close to the car in front of me. However, when I got back to the grid, I was still stuck in the starting procedure. So they were going almost, they were almost at the start finish line, and I wanted to catch up to them, but so I took off, drove as quickly as I could, but at some point you obviously get the warning to you're too fast, slow down. So I couldn't even really catch up to the field, which made it even more infuriating at the moment.
Well,
And to
there
be
you
fair,
have
I'm
it.
quite glad that I didn't get a penalty for that.
Yeah, I was talking about that. I was explaining to Callum how you have a certain amount of time, otherwise you get penalized, and that's what was confusing to me, knowing the start procedure system and how that happened and how you didn't get further penalized. But there you have it. That's what happened on that occasion. Um, what was it like coming back through that field? I mean, you had all the work to do. I mean, is P2? Does that feel like a win to you after what you've been through?
Uh, yeah, pretty much. Like from the races that I've done so far this season, like I was starting quite far back on the race in Sebring, and I had a pit late start in Qatar as well because I had to reset my wheel and everything on the grid. So I'm quite experienced with that. So normally, like as you mentioned, the cars can be quite tricky to drive. Like it's I don't want to say hard to make them snap, but when they snap, they really snap. Like mostly the problem lies with the like default brake bias. Putting it forward by 1 or 2% for me help with it massively. And it lures you into this false sense of security that with the like low percentage of brake pressure that you can apply more and more brakes, brake a tiny bit later, but once you overstep the boundary, like you'll be spinning into the barrier very soon.
Good grief. Well, there you have it. Marco Badowski, do you have anyone you would like to shout out, say hello to, or thank?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to my Champions League stream on my other monitor to keep this race interesting. To Rachel
Savage.
for being in the voice channel, and to my friend Tessa as well for staying in the voice channel with us.
Marco,
Well,
who's playing and what's the score?
Arsenal against Bayern Munich, it's level 1-1.
Ah,
Marco,
hope Bayern
Marco,
Munich
I hate to put you on the spot here. You got a TV license for that? You have a license
Yes,
for that? I don't know. I don't know if I'm convinced. Marco and Peter Varga, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for racing in the inaugural prototype sprint championship. It was more fun having you out there, especially today, because of how crazy it all turned out. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again next time. Thanks for coming and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well,
Goodbye.
Callum, it was a championship that we didn't know how it was going to go. It turns out the cars were the stars. Very difficult to drive. You heard it from the drivers themselves, and just drama throughout. I think from green to checkered flag, every single race, every race had something, that extra little something that kept us all on edge and kept us wondering what on earth is going on.
Yeah, it's one of them that highlights sort of consistency and finishing every race well. And it was so hard to do, like especially Marco and Peter saying these cars are difficult to drive. It means they're really quite difficult to drive. And it's nice to run though. It's nice to run see some cars that are new to this game and to the world at the moment in sim racing, and run on some layouts that perhaps don't get as much love. I mean, I really enjoyed commentating the Sebring race. I know a lot of the drivers didn't really enjoy driving it because it was very, very difficult, but it was probably one of the more fun races I've commentated because there's just so much going on all the time. And I think it sort of highlights that when you get the big numbers in tricky to drive race cars on unusual circuits, it throws up all sorts of mayhem. But no, big congrats to those who've won championships and finished on podium positions and stuff like that. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this series. But looking forward to, I think the Porsche Cup is probably the next time I'm commentating. You probably know my schedule better than me, though.
Yeah, you'd think that as your broadcast manager. I think it's you and me for the Porsche Cup on Monday. Buddy, we're just going to keep it rolling. Yeah, Monday, Porsche Cup on ACC, the continuation of that series on Monday. And of course, if LMU is more your style, if you like hypercars and GT3s, the new multi-sprint series on season number 4 already here on LMU, that starts next Friday, December the 5th. Still time to sign up. Second split open question mark.
Yes.
So many signups for that series. We'd love to have you. We still got room in split number 2. Hypercar and GT3. That in a week and a half's time on Friday for LMU. We'll be back with you on Monday for continuing coverage of the Assetto Corsa Porsche Cup Championship. But for the prototype sprint series, it's all done and dusted. Racing at a lot of the shorter or alternate tracks this season. Refreshing to see different tracks be used. I think we can all say drama till the very last here at Monza as well. A big thank you to everyone who's helped bring this series to you. A big thank you to the drivers, the admins, our broadcasters, our commentators. It's been such an enjoyable, refreshing series. I think we can all agree. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Callum Kerwin. Kevin Boss was behind the cameras today. We thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you next time. And until then, have a good night.
You ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Get behind the wheel, let's go. Grip the road, feel the flow. Thunder roaring, steel alive. Live this dream and drive. Tires burning with gasoline. Push the limits, chasing green. One shot, don't slow. Go on, we'll take control. Engines scream alive tonight. Blazing past the red line. Outrun the night, won't lose this fight. Follow the road, red line for show. We're chasing taillights, don't let go. Under the stars, we'll go so far. This is who we are. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. We're chasing taillights. The miles they fade, but they don't die. Faster now, the hours fly by. Sweat and gears, hearts in sync. On the edge, on the brink. one mistake, we kiss us goodbye. Don't slow down,